Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Soul Seeds, where my guest expert for today is Barbara. And Barbara is a transformational life coach and a forgiveness specialist. So today's topic is forgiveness and self-forgiveness. So thank you for being here, Barbara.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And I would love to know, why is forgiving such a healing healing thing to do, really?
It's for me, it's a master practice. So
Mm,
either a mental health or an emotional health practice, or if you are on a spiritual path, it's master spiritual practice. Partly
mhm,
because it's so hard. It's
mm,
actually really difficult to do it. It's a bit like trying to get your heart to do things that is unfamiliar, like
mm.
let go.
Right.
And
Yeah, yeah.
because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and a
Mm,
lot of old beliefs about what forgiveness means. Like it means that you're saying something's okay, or you're
right.
letting somebody off the hook, or it's about not holding clear boundaries. There's a lot of misunderstanding around it, and I think
Mhm,
that helps to make the waters very muddy. But
mhm,
the truth about forgiveness is it can transform your relationship with other people. So it's a
mhm.
way of clearing out your relationships, as in you can do your forgiveness practice on your current relationships, past relationships. It's a way of healing the past and healing the trauma from the past, or even just the normal slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It's not just for big things. And often when forgiveness gets discussed, it's discussed in extreme terms. Like
Mhm.
the stories about forgiveness are often very extreme. There's been trauma, somebody's been killed, or there's been an accident, and
Right.
and there's not enough about our daily need for
Mm,
forgiveness with our loved
right.
ones and our not so loved ones. And
Yeah.
it's, to me, it's a mental health practice, because it undoes the things that we carry with us that we think we can't resolve.
Hmm.
Particularly like if somebody's died, we can't go back and say the things we wish we said, but in a
Hmm.
forgiveness practice you can. So
Yeah,
it's
because the
it's
word
just
forgiveness has quite a lot of weight to it. And like you said, it's often associated with quite these big feelings, big experiences, and traumatic experience even. But on a daily basis, even we can forgive ourselves for a lot of things, right?
yes, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And self-forgiveness can be probably the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people say you have to forgive yourself first before you can forgive other people, but I don't agree with that. I think
Mm.
you start anywhere. And
Right.
if you are the hardest person that you need to forgive, because we've got no distance between ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, so it's sometimes it can be harder to do that, and we're most critical about ourselves and most
Mm-hmm.
harsh. And
Yeah.
so for those reasons, sometimes it doesn't really matter where you start, but just do,
Yeah.
whatever you
Start
can to
somewhere.
forgive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm,
No, I think that is essential. But also, when we hear the word forgiveness, like you said, it's all, we don't mean to say that what the other person like did to us is okay, because I think we forgive others. We don't say, okay, what you did was okay, but we do it for to find peace within ourselves, right?
exactly. Absolutely. And I use a very particular definition of forgiveness, which
Mm-hmm.
came from one of my original teachers, K. Bradford Brown. And he says that forgiveness is the absolute refusal to hold ill will against someone for what they did or didn't do. And
Mm.
I demonstrate it a bit like this. So we're gathering up all the little grievances and grudges and all the things that we carry in our daily lives. And
Mm-hmm.
the absolute refusal is just we're choosing to put it down. We're
Mm.
not carrying it with us. And I think
Right.
it's such a helpful definition, because you can understand it's not
Mm-hmm.
about condoning. I can still say what you did was wrong. I can
Mm-hmm.
still I can still go to court, either with my grievance
Right.
or without it.
Mm. Right.
Things are still wrong,
Yeah.
but choosing whether or not you forgive them, that's to do with what you want to carry in your heart. And what's interesting, and this is what I think kind of drew me to the work really,
Mm-hmm.
was there are reasons why we hold on to our resentment and our
Mm-hmm.
grievances, and we're not usually aware. We have
Mm-hmm.
this set of scales inside of us. When somebody does something, we feel like we have to do a thing
Mm-hmm.
back, or we have to somehow make it even. And we even
Mm.
have that phrase about we need to get even.
Right.
when we're talking about somebody's done something, how can you
Mm.
get even? So we even have that sort of metaphor. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is that we're not aware that we're holding on. Often we're
Hmm.
not aware that we're carrying the grievance, and we're not aware that it has any detrimental impact on us.
Right. Yeah, because the
It
only
does.
person we're hurting with not forgiving someone is ourselves. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's
And
a lovely phrase about if you holding on to resentment is like setting yourself on fire and
mm,
hoping the other person will be
mm,
bothered by the smoke, or like
right.
taking poison and hoping the other person will die. You know,
Mm,
it's like we kind of know that it's not good for us, but it can be a bit addictive. And
mm.
I was speaking to a client yesterday actually, and they were saying that they fuel it with their friends. They go to their
Oh.
friends and they say, you'll never guess what she did next. You know,
Oh.
there's that sort of way of feeding the flames,
Hmm.
feeding the
Right.
fire.
And is there almost like a physical reaction when you release and you do forgive?
Well, I think that's the most amazing thing,
Mm-hmm.
is because it's hard, it's subtle territory. It's hard to describe what happens inside of you, but this
Mm-hmm.
sense of lightness. And this is really interesting, Susan, that I read this paper recently about, there's a study that's been done recently about forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
and your ability to jump high. And after forgiveness, you can jump higher.
Because you're
And
literally lighter.
literally lighter, and hills seem less steep. I mean, it's quite funny that they would do a forgiveness study about how does forgiveness relate to jumping, because that wouldn't be my first kind
Yeah.
of, the benefits of forgiveness are, well, you can jump, but
Yeah.
because it's describing the lightness that we feel when we do it. and
Mm.
and but most of the time, because we're not aware that this is a problem, we're holding all these grievances,
Yeah.
and maybe we feel a bit depressed, or we just feel a bit down on life, but we don't ever kind of go, ooh, it's me that's doing it, I'm holding
Right.
this stuff. But when we do the release, suddenly there's more energy, the energy
Yeah.
that you were using that was turning inward, because resentment comes from the Latin sentir, to feel, and
Mm.
resent, to feel it again. So it's all, you're feeling all these
Right.
negative feelings, and then when you've forgiven somebody, you've really chosen to let it go, to put it
Mm-hmm.
down. All of this energy that was fueling your own internal anger is suddenly released. You can
Mm.
maybe do good things in the world. Maybe there's more of you available for your creative projects, or
Right.
just, enjoying nature or something, or
Mm.
doing music, like there's the energy. We don't realize that it's
Mm-hmm.
actually affecting us in a negative way. But
Right.
there are lots of studies about the physiology and
Mm-hmm.
how not forgiving and carrying resentment can affect your heart health, your blood
Mm.
pressure, your cortisol levels. And because we live in a world where there's so much stress and we're all
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed, being able to do your forgiveness work
Mm-hmm.
means that you can let go of some of that stress.
Mm-hmm.
And studies show that it's actually really an amazing benefit to your physiology, as well as your mental and
Mm.
emotional and relational health.
Yeah, I did a forgiveness ritual actually not that long ago because I had a grievance well with a close friend of mine, and I had to let her or that friendship go. And that was really hard for me because we'd been friends for a long time. But that ritual was to write down the situation as I saw it, then rewrite it as I wish I would it would have occurred, and then forgiving her for that did not happen. So that was quite a strong way to okay, we let that
Beautiful.
go to yeah, and I felt lighter as well. So are there any other rituals that you can recommend for
Yeah,
people who
well,
want?
yes, I have a process, a 7-step forgiveness made easy process. So in my book, I outline like
Mhm,
the 5 obstacles to forgiveness, but then I also have created a process that sort of synthesizes a few other modalities, and
mhm,
it's done like a guided visualization, like an active imagination process, like the Jungian idea of you can change things in your
mhm,
imagination. And what's wonderful for your brain and your neuro pathways, you're you don't know that it's not real. So
mm,
doing that kind of ritual can be
mhm,
incredibly powerful, because you can have a conversation with somebody that you can't have in real life, but you can
Mhm.
have it in your imagination and you can have
Right.
it out loud. And so I host online forgiveness fields where people can come, a bit like a yoga studio, but you
Mhm.
come and you can do a practice just like that. So a little
Mhm.
ritual. And I think it's really important that we have those kinds of ceremonies,
Mhm.
that there's a way of formally saying, okay,
Right.
this was what I was carrying against this friend,
Yeah.
and I've chosen to release it, to let it go.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, I'm choosing to draw a line. And often what's amazing, I mean, I also work one-to-one with clients as well to lead them, especially there's been a lot of trauma
Mhm.
through a process. And what's amazing is after they've done the process, that sometimes the person they've done a process on will
Mhm.
get in contact,
Mhm.
or and it can be amazing the difference that it can make when you feel like you've shifted something. And it doesn't
Right.
mean you have to reconcile with somebody,
Mhm.
particularly if there's been abuse. And I want to be really clear about that, because that's another thing that people can be afraid of, that they think if I say I forgive somebody, it means that I have to take them back or
Right.
reconcile with them. You don't have to
Yeah.
reconcile with your
Mm.
friend. It just means you are not carrying any ill will. Maybe
Right.
you even wish them well, but
Mhm.
you're clear,
Yeah.
you don't want to have that person back in your life again.
Mhm. Yeah, because healthy boundaries are also essential in it.
Really important. Yeah.
Mhm. And also, again, that comes like forgiving someone else also comes with forgiving yourself in a way for saying, okay, I'm not carrying this anymore, and I forgive myself for carrying it as long as I have.
Yes. It's a really important point, actually. Often there's three strands to forgiveness. So
Mm.
there's the person we want to forgive,
Mhm.
and then sometimes we need to ask for forgiveness.
Mhm.
So that was what on my mind this morning, was the asking of forgiveness about
Mhm.
how I treated somebody, rather than necessarily about them and their
Mhm.
treatment of me. And then the last one is self-forgiveness. So
Mhm.
often those three are woven together, even in the same story or the
Right.
same incident or the same relationship.
Mm.
There's all three parts.
Well, thank you so much. It was, yeah, an eye-opening conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.